Hello everyone, I've had some requests to make a video covering over a few essentials for hunters. Today I'm going to go over my preferred spec, how I gear my hunter for leveling, and tips to help you stay alive while leveling. Now the main reason why I'm making this video is because I've noticed that a lot of hunters are dying, and that they seem to be the highest class to die in hardcore WoW for some reason. So we're first going to start off with my spec. Personally, I prefer survival and beastmaster, mostly survival because I like the boosted traps and increasing the effectiveness of my feign death just for those sometimes occasions. Entrapment is a great tool because it lets you control any fight, giving you the option to handle multiple mobs at once if necessary. This spec does require some skill though and some knowledge of the game, so knowing like when you've bitten off more than you could chew, it's important with this spec. One key skill as a hunter is controlling your aggro, making sure that when you're pulling stuff, your pet you're not pulling off your pet too often. Now sometimes pulling off your pet is good because you have to level up your defense. Defense is very important when it comes to a hunter. As you're leveling and stuff like that, you might end up out leveling your defense like I currently am on my character. My defense is 167 out of 180. It's not super low, but if I fight mobs that are my level, they have a chance to cause a crushing blow on me, which is kind of like a small crit. It's like 50% extra damage, and depending on, if you're fighting multiple mobs and stuff, that can hurt and kill you pretty quickly. Especially like the ogres in like Athari Highlands, they actually have like boosted berserk modes and stuff like that. So you got to be careful of that. So keeping a higher defense is important. You can do stuff like this where you're running around Durotar, or if you're Alliance, wherever you are, and just beat stuff up with your fists, because having unarmed is also important, and it allows you to level up your defense. Now, kind of diving more into the spec itself, I'll go over the talents here. So the main talents that you kind of get later on, Sure-Footed is fantastic for leveling and late game. So in game content, this 3% hit is great. For early leveling, it allows you to fight a little bit higher mobs, because if you can't hit stuff, you're not going to do any damage. So having that 3% hit chance is important. Another big talent is entrapment. This gives your traps a 25% chance to entrap things, preventing them from moving for up to 5 seconds. Now you got to be careful with this because it's not a stun. If they're entrapped, they will still hit whatever is around them. So if your pet is fighting them but they are aggroed to you, you can recall your pet. That way your pet's not taking that damage, and you can just kind of have free reign at shooting at them and stuff like that. And then usually what I would do is after they get out of the frost trap and they get closer to me, I'll feign death, so that way my pet can take aggro for a little bit, and then I'll run to the other side of the freezing trap. But then another two fantastic talents in the survival tree is monster slaying and humanoid slaying, because that's just a base increase of 3% damage, and 3% crit on those mobs as well. So it just increases your ability to kill things, and that's great. Now, another key talent, depending on if you want this or not, is improved wing clip. It's great. I usually try to put a few points into this because I'll just spam wing clip level 1 until that happens. Usually I don't level up wing clip past level 1, except for later on there's a quest if you're doing the hunter stuff where you need to use the higher level wing clips, but that's later. I'm kind of mostly going over this video for early levels and leveling up. Later on, I'll do a late game, end game video for you guys once I get there. Now, for the other talent trees, when it comes to Beastmaster, I usually go with Improved Aspect of the Hawk. And then if I need my pet to be a little bit more tanky, I'll go with Endurance Training. Right now, I'm doing a thing where I can't revive my pet. So I'm currently not going into Improved Revive Pet. But if I did revive my pet, that's what I would go with, because it's great. It reduces the mana cost, allows you to revive your pet faster, and it's important for like situations where your pet dies. And then of course pathfinding is great for if you don't have a mount and you're a little brokey. This is great because you can kind of go with this for a while without a mount, because you're going like 36% speed. It's pretty good. There's a few other key talents in here, but it's just kind of like depending on how much you use your pet. And then another talent I would suggest getting either early or late is Improved Concussive Shot, because it's great for having that stun. It definitely comes in clutch once in a while. Now, that kind of covers the talents and everything, so we're going to go into my stat and gear priority. Right. So, now, when it comes to stats for a hunter, depending on if you're max level or not, max level hit chance is your first thing that you want to get to 9%. But while you're leveling, it's not as important. It's still important, but it's not as important because you're always leveling up and stuff like that. But once you get to max level, that's the top stat, because it, like I said, if you can't hit it, you're not doing damage. Second stat is agility. Agility is probably, in my opinion, your top stat, because it gives you 2 ranged attack power, 1 melee attack power, a slight increased chance to your critical strike, 2 armor, and a small boost to your dodge chance. Agility is highly valuable since it scales with certain buffs. Solo 1 agility is roughly worth 2.5 attack, but with a full set of raid and world buffs, it's closer to 3 attack power. Agility will be your main source of attack power and is the best stat to stack aside from hit and crit chance. Stamina is the second most important stat when it comes to keeping you alive, because no health means no hunter. Simple as that. Stamina is vital for surviving while leveling. Now, third, you have Spirit. Spirit is helpful because it boosts your mana and healing health regeneration. Having some Spirit is important, so that way you can kind of go from mob to mob and you're not spending too much time, waiting to tag that next mob, especially when it comes into caves and stuff like that, and where you need to just kind of get in and get out. Now, finally, strength and intellect, I'm putting at the lower end of the priority list. Strength is important because sometimes you have melee where you have to melee, and having some strength is good. And then intellect is also very important because it's your main resource in Classic WoW. Unlike retail, mana is your resource for your spells, so having intellect increases that. Now, that covers my gear priorities. And in Classic WoW, if you're doing self-made mode, you kind of gotta take what you get. So, like, for example, I have this necklace of the bear. It's better than what I had, which was nothing, but it's not necessarily the stats I need. So I took it, I wear it, it gives me a little bit of strength, but the stamina is the main thing that I took from it. And so when it comes to self-made mode, you got to just kind of try to get those agility points. But if it's something secondary like strength or stamina or intellect, pick it up and wear it. Now, finally, I just want to go over some basic tips to keep in mind while you're leveling. One big thing is, if you're fighting a specific mob, try to make sure you're tracking that specific mob. For example, if you're fighting ogres, track humanoids. So that way you can keep an eye on your mini-map if you start to get surrounded or see that things that are spawning behind you, either turn around, kill them, give yourself some more breathing room, or if you're in a cave, maybe make your way out of that cave if you don't need to be in there. It's important because as being a hunter, you need that range. You need to be able to shoot your bow or your gun or your crossbow, whatever it is. You need to be able to shoot it, so you have to have that extra range. So you have to be careful of mobs behind you. Now, a second important tip for hunters is ammo management. In Classic WoW, ammo is key for hunters. In Retail WoW, you don't have to worry about it at all. But in Classic, that's important. What I would suggest doing is every time you're in town, top up your ammo. Even if, you just topped it up, just buy a couple more. Especially if you're about to go into a dungeon, I would suggest even buying extra ammo and put it in your regular slot bags. Because if you run out of ammo, your damage is going to be gone. You're not going to be doing anything. Now, the final tip I would give is when you're out there alone, if you pull too much, run early. Don't wait until it's too late. If you see that you pulled 4 or 5 mobs, just leave and then come back. Don't risk it. Don't try to push it. Now, I hope this guide kind of helped you guys. If you have more questions for me or inquiries about hunters and stuff like that, let me know. I'm glad, or stop by the stream. I'm glad to help or answer any questions you guys might have. Just remember, being prepared and knowing when to pull back can make all the difference. If you found this guide helpful, don't forget to subscribe, and like I said, let me know if you have any other questions or if you want me to go over some of the other classes. I'm willing to. All right. Well, thanks for watching and happy hunting out there, guys.